Hey everybody, it's Eric from GameShampoo.com, and I am back from Comic Con. It's been about a week since the convention ended, and I'm just gonna recap everything that happened and everything that we reported on and videotaped in case you missed anything, because it was quite a busy convention, although um, maybe a little bit smaller for the fact that E3 happened last month, and a lot of the stuff that was at Comic Con this year I ended up seeing at E3 a month ago. So, um, kind of took the wind out of the sails of a lot of the stuff that was there, but then, managed to catch up on a few things that I missed out on playing at E3, like Knack on the PS4 and Lost Planet 3 and stuff like that. And, of course, there were some Comic Con exclusive announcements, a lot of Blizzard stuff. There was a good chunk of Batman Arkham Origins stuff, which is probably more of an appropriate venue to release that information at than E3 would have been anyway. So it's still got a lot of good stuff to go over here. So I'm just gonna kick it off. E3 kind of ended on a sour note for Microsoft and a pretty good note for Sony and the PS4 because of all those used games and always on Connect kind of policies that Microsoft was shoving down everybody's throats at the time, and then a week later they turned around and reversed everything. And so Comic Con was really the first chance that I've had to see how the public was responding to that at all, and kind of get down on the ground floor with fans for the first time since E3 and see what the general consensus was. And a lot of people have already been sold on the PS4, but I found that a lot of people were also kind of tipping between the two. Like, well, I'm definitely getting a PS4, but I might get an Xbox One as well, or, I'm not sure which one I'm going to get at launch, or, maybe I'll pick up a PS4 now, but I'm probably going to pick up an Xbox One later when the price goes down, or better games are out or whatever. So that was probably the most interesting part of the convention for me, or at least one of the most interesting parts. There were a few other pretty cool things there too, but just getting down on the show floor and getting in lines or talking to developers or talking to fans, mostly like 95% of the people I talked to there were probably fans, and getting just kind of taking the temperature of the room really on the next gen battle that we've got coming up in November. It seems like Microsoft has much more of a fighting chance than they would have, just a month ago. And I know I personally am much more open to the idea of going out and paying for an Xbox One versus paying for a PS4. Although, in the end, I was gonna buy both either way, no matter what, because that's just the kind of person that I am, and I need to play these games. So that was a big thing right off the bat, was getting down there on preview night and talking to people about the consoles. And then the next day, I was able to start going to some panels, which is probably the big thing at Comic Con, that and the Masquerade. So first off, we started off with the Blizzard product showcase panel, which was a really big one last year, and not quite as big this year. If I remember right, there was no BlizzCon last year, so they had to cram a lot more into this product showcase panel that they do at Comic Con every year. And so this year it was a little more sparse, but there's still pumping out, a ridiculous amount of WoW stuff, and it's like 90% WoW stuff. A lot of Diablo stuff too. Didn't see so much in the way of StarCraft. So here's a list of everything that was at the Blizzard Product Showcase panel. They had 2 exclusives. There was a hardcover Blizzard art book and a reversible Zergling plushie, and those were down on the show floor, and unfortunately I didn't get to either of those because Comic-Con exclusive items tend to sell out if not on the preview night, then in the first hour or so of the actual convention. I know there was a good amount of Comic-Con exclusive Legos. I cannot think of Lego for some reason, but there's a good amount of Comic-Con exclusive Legos down there on the preview night, and within the first, I'd say, half an hour to 45 minutes, I made my way over there and talked a little bit to the woman who was handing out the cards for the Lego team, and she told me that they were already just about to sell out. So exclusive stuff sells out super fast, and doubly so almost when it's got the Blizzard name on it. So those things were gone in a flash, but they were there for a brief period of time. Next up would be sculptures. These things all available outside of Comic-Con, not quite done yet for the most part. Sideshow Entertainment is always there in a really big way with Blizzard at their panels, and this year was no exception. They had statues from Diablo, from WoW. First thing they showed off this year was a massive statue of Diablo himself, and it has a series of LED lights in the chest, so that you can actually get this kind of ember-like glow coming out of his abdomen like you would get in the game. It's a really massive statue, huge in scale. They're working on putting the finishing touches on it now, and it's supposed to ship in November. The second thing they showed off was a Deathwing statue with this really huge wingspan, about this wide. They didn't give like a specific number, but certainly wider than the computer I've got here by about 6-7 inches maybe. It's quite the imposing statue, and very tall as well. And just for kind of point of reference, they told the audience that they have spent more time crafting the wings of the creature than they have the body. I think the figure was something like, it took us 3 times the amount of time to craft a wing than it did to craft the body, because of the fine little details that they just have to chisel into the wings to kind of get those fibers and those small bird-like bones. But it looks like it is definitely going to be worth it. The thing is ridiculously detailed, and it's going to come to retail hopefully in 2014. No official date, no quarter or season or anything like that, but 2014 is what they're shooting for. The next statue was actually from StarCraft 2. It's a 1/6 scale Raynor statue. So everything is represented at scale to a 1/6 scale. Each of the fingers has 3 joints. The statue stands around 15 inches and is made up of about 525 individual pieces. So that's really impressive for a statue of that size, and I think it's kind of indicative of this really minutia-oriented kind of approach that Sideshow and a few of the other companies down there on the show floor take with their sculptures, that the finger itself has all 3 joints in it. That's not something that you would see out of lesser figure sculptures, and that's really exciting. So pre-orders should be starting in a few weeks as of their Comic-Con panel, so I would say look out for pre-orders in about a week, maybe a week and a half. But keep refreshing StarCraft2.com and you'll be one of the first to know. The last statue they showed off was also from StarCraft 2, and this one made me quite happy. It was a Kerrigan statue to accompany its Raynor counterpart. It's really going for kind of like a, I think they said seductive or like live kind of vibe, because she is the leader of this hive mind. She has this kind of intelligence to her, but also obviously incredibly dangerous. And the Kerrigan statue will be crafted by the same people who crafted the Poison Ivy Sideshow statue at last year's Comic-Con, which I managed to see for like 5 seconds and looked really impressive. Then we're on to the collectibles. This is the last section. This is kind of just where they dump all the random junk that they're making for Diablo and WoW. So Blizzard Funko Pop are coming very soon. The release date is September 4th for those. Blizzard is making an attempt to diversify their offerings and get into different styles of merchandise. So they're going with some more stylized figures this year. And that's kind of a theme that you're going to see more as we go on. There's a NECA action figure of Diablo coming around the console launch, so around like October, November, maybe December. And the hope is we can do more of these NECA figures. There is a stylized chibi-style Sylvanas figure coming out probably next year. No firm date on that just yet, but her style was highly researched. They did months and months of internal testing and voting and stuff like that to nail this sort of smaller chibi style without really betraying the original intent of the artwork. The Pearl of Pandaria comic is complete by now and on sale. The Diablo 3 Sword of Justice comic has been collected into one volume for the first time, which is now on sale. Blizzard just launched a comic called Dark Riders with the goal of making accessible characters, perhaps inspired by characters who play in World of Warcraft. And the Bloodsworn World of Warcraft comics are also out now. The Vol'jin is a novel coming from Blizzard that will expand the lore of their in-game worlds. They are publishing a WoW children's book called Snow Fight, which looks positively adorable and has no release date yet, but is promised to include plenty of inside jokes. World of Warcraft is getting a visual guide, which is being made in association with DK Publishing, and it's kind of designed to give fans a sense of the world and the world's history. A WoW Trivial Pursuit game will release in October, and finally, a WoW poster book is coming out, which includes 32 full-sized posters. I think that may actually already be out. They didn't give out a date on that one. So that is Blizzard. Massive panel. Let's see what else we've got here. I managed to play Knack at the PS4 booth, as I mentioned a little bit earlier. It's a pretty long demo, about 10 minutes was the cap where they were kind of kicking people out. But there were two different demos. There's one in a city and then there's one in these icy caverns, and you also kind of get to go into this palace as a part of the city one and explore the different ways that Knack can kind of change up his body and the ways that that will affect the gameplay. So for example, if you turn really big, obviously you're stronger. If you smash up ice crystals in the ice cave, you can actually absorb them into your body, and that will kind of change the way that your attacks play out. I saw in a trailer one other example of this where Knack integrates wood into his body and he's able to set himself on fire, and so he becomes like this giant flaming golem creature. But then on the other hand, if you shrink and you lose all that mass, you can actually turn not invisible, it didn't really seem like, but kind of like clear and transparent. And this allowed him to run through these laser beams that were guarding this palace. But then if you run around the corner, there's a bunch of guys there and they can see you, so it didn't seem like you were totally invisible or anything. But changing up the gameplay based on your size, and you could just tap triangle to switch between being small and big or whatever. So I have impressions of that up on the site, much more detailed than what I'm going to go over here, but there was a lot of combat, a little bit of platforming, found some collectibles. I found out how the game will use the PlayStation 4i camera. So it's interesting stuff. It seems like a pretty fun game. Not necessarily something that will sell a lot of systems, I bet, but if you're already going to buy a PS4 because of like Killzone or Infamous or something like that, which do look really, really good, then you might as well buy Knack 2, is kind of how it seems. Seems pretty fun. Seems solid enough. But we'll definitely have more impressions of that in the fall. So, got to play Knack. That was cool. Next up, I went into the Rise panel for Xbox One. This was kind of a little bit of a sparse panel because they ended up showing off a lot of the interesting stuff from Rise either at E3 a month ago or during the Xbox One panel, which was kind of reserved for the Xbox One and some of the launch games that they're bringing up. But, I guess the main focus of the panel at Comic-Con was how they're trying to make Rise like a movie. And so they're bringing in all this talent from television and movies. The guy who's directing a lot of the action and a lot of the dialogue and stuff has actually never worked on a video game before. And he's only been in TV, I think. So it's kind of interesting. I almost don't know why you would do that, because you're making a video game, you're not making a television show, so why take inspiration from that, But it certainly looks cinematic, as everybody probably saw at E3, so now we know why, I guess. But we'll have more news on Rise soon, more substantial stuff. After that, I sat in on a Viz Media panel. So this is kind of like a manga panel. Viz obviously responsible for Ranma 1/2, Dragon Ball Z. They did the Battle Royale novel, and what else? A couple of other big series. I haven't really followed anything like that recently. But basically looked into all of the digital publishing stuff that they were doing. That's what I found the most interesting. They have an app on iOS, Android, e-readers, and it allows you to just kind of download manga as it comes out, and they have these weekly sales primarily on volumes 1 and 2 of different series that they kind of want people to pick up, maybe aren't quite getting the traction they need, or maybe it's like a themed week or something like that. But they do weekly sales, so they're really trying to make it easier to get into a series, because back in the day, you go to the bookstore, and if they have it in stock in the first place, it's like $8 to $10 to pick up a volume, and then you finish with it in 45 minutes or something like that. So it really, to me, it wasn't worth it. But this digitalization of manga and comics sounds like it has a lot of potential. So maybe I'll check that out. They also have an anime streaming app for the Xbox 360, and I believe for the PS3 as well, that is coming to PC and Mac as well. It's called Neon Alley, and it's basically a channel that is devoted entirely to anime. So if you're into anime, you pretty much can't go wrong with Neon Alley. It actually looks pretty neat. So next up, we have a ton of Batman Arkham Origins news. We've got the main panel itself, which had a ton of cool stuff. The biggest thing is Copperhead. Everybody who's into this game has probably heard about this by now. Copperhead is a lady this time around, and they showed off a little trailer where she springs down on Batman, catches him by surprise during an interrogation, and then scratches him with poison claws, messes him all up. So that's the big thing. But then we also had Roger Craig Smith and Troy Baker there as Batman and the Joker, respectively. They did really, really small amounts of like sample voice work. Roger did the Alfred of Batman, and Troy Baker did a little kind of deep-throated Joker laugh. But that was about it. And they talked about being these famous characters stepping into these huge shoes that you almost couldn't possibly fill, and called it surreal. So we have a bunch of stuff from Troy and from Roger as well written down in here, so go check out the article on the site. I'm not going to say it all here for time's sake, but it's really interesting stuff. And they also go through the design process and even maybe tease some more assassins that they haven't revealed yet. Next piece of Batman news is the trailer itself for Copperhead. We have that up in both articles about Batman, so just scroll down to the bottom and you can see it if you haven't seen it yet. It's really, really cool. It instantly made me a lot more excited for that game, because the Arkham games are really good games, but this kind of just looked like, okay, here's a third game We're gonna make it good, make it as good as we can, but it's still the same basic thing. I don't think I necessarily was dying for a third game after Arkham City. But now that they're kind of dipping into the well of these lesser known villains, they just released a Mad Hatter trailer a couple days ago, for example. That's exciting to me. I think that's really cool. They also teased Batgirl during their panel and just kind of like, gave that, well, that would be really cool. I can't actually say anything. I shouldn't say anything. All but confirmed it before then all but unconfirming it just like 12 hours later or something like that. He says that they're not ruling anything out. Eric Holmes, the director of the game, he says they're not ruling anything out, but Batgirl herself will not be in the game, at least not in the form that players might be expecting. So, could still be in the game, but could play perhaps a different role than she usually would in the comics. So during Comic-Con, PAX Australia was also going on, so the next piece of info that came our way was actually from PAX Australia, and it just kind of happened to coincide with everything. And it's Borderlands 2. Randy Pitchford confirmed a bunch of new DLC for the game. First on Twitter, and then during a panel at PAX Australia. So, let me just pull up the full list because there is a decent amount of stuff. We've got Headhunter packs, which will be kind of like bounty missions almost. They'll challenge you to go after a specific enemy. So the one they revealed was, I think, Jock O'Lantern, who is like a headless horseman, pumpkinhead kind of dude. And, basically players get to hunt him down and collect some loot and XP and all this stuff. They're raising the level cap to 72 with the Ultimate Vault Hunter Upgrade Pack 2 Digistruct Peak Challenge, which will cost $5, and will also include some new dialogue and stuff like that from Patricia Tannis. Excuse me. And you'll get to face off against high-level enemies for better loot. There'll also be a free title update that will increase your ammo bank and backpack slots. All that stuff is coming later this year. Gearbox is holding a community day on September 17th, so they're probably going to reveal a lot more then. And I cannot believe almost how much life they're pumping out of this game. It's a really good thing, and instead of just pumping out a sequel this year, they're just keeping that DLC train rolling. That's kind of something that I would like to see more studios adapt into their games. So next up is the Building Halo Worlds panel, which consisted of Frank O'Connor, Dan Au, Martin DeRon, Graham Jennings, and Brian Reed. And basically they talked about Halo Spartan Assault, which is now out on Windows 8 devices. So that was really the big thing. And they talked a lot about how they wanted to make the shooter feel like a traditional shooter, even though it's actually a top-down shooter. So the way they did that was that they went into Halo Reach and they filmed a bunch of multiplayer matches, and they actually pulled the camera out so it was looking down on the action from an 85-degree angle. And then they watched the way that the action played out, the flow of the action, and they tried to model the campaign after the flow of that action in multiplayer. So it's a really interesting idea, and it really goes to show how the tools that Bungie have built into older Halo games and that 343 built into Halo 4 are actually helping them develop the series going forward. So that's really cool. There's also going to be some new Halo comics coming from Dark Horse. The new comic is called Initiation, I believe, and it's going to kind of expand on the story of Halo 4, specifically Sarah Palmer, and kind of show you what the process was that she went through to become a Spartan, and why there are more Spartans running around all of a sudden. So next up is EA. They revealed story details for Battlefield 4 during Comic-Con. The world is on the brink of chaos. China is the tinderbox, and you and your squad are the inadvertent spark that could ignite a global conflict. This is Battlefield 4. So basically, you are Sergeant Daniel Recker. You're a member of an elite group of soldiers called Tombstone Squad, and you go in to collect intel on the Russians into Azerbaijan, but you get caught, and that kind of like initiates a Cold War almost between some of the world's largest superpowers, and that kind of takes you to China, where there's a coup going on, and yeah, world's messed up. We have the entire synopsis, which is huge at 4 pretty long paragraphs up on the site. It kind of gives a few maybe mild spoilers for things, so I don't really want to read the entire thing, but they go over the Angry Sea mission that was covered at E3, and they cover that fishing in Baku mission that they revealed in that big 17-minute trailer. I cover a bunch of other stuff in here too, but basically you're fighting Russia and China, sometimes Chinese insurgents and stuff. It's it's a Battlefield game, so it's not like the story is going to be the thing that sells you on that game. Or if it is, there's something wrong. So next up, you got to check out the Xbox One UI, which is really cool. It's kind of a unique mix of Windows 8 and Xbox 360, which itself, I guess, kind of influenced Windows 8 in a sense. But the big thing coming away from that was the game DVR feature. They focused a lot on that, and that's something that PS4 is doing as well. So it's not like it's an exclusive to one console or the other, but they showed off how game DVR can be used to record gameplay and then edit it afterwards. And they showed off this really brief Killer Instinct trailer that had been edited together with game DVR, and it was kind of impressive, I guess. They talked about all these features that you can implement into the game using game DVR, or implement into the video rather, but then they kind of didn't show any of them off during the trailer, which was kind of odd. But after you've recorded this gameplay and you're going in to edit it, you can add your voice from Kinect, you can add video from the Kinect, so I expect lots of naked people running around. I guess they'll probably have to police that in a way, and you can add text on the screen as well, so that's kind of neat. And they're also revamping achievements. This was actually maybe the more exciting part, or the way that it ties in with game DVR is really exciting, I should say. So when you get an achievement now, if you record while you're getting that achievement and upload your video, it'll be tagged to that achievement, so players can search for a specific achievement, and every single video that has that achievement popping up in it will come up as a result. From there, you can sort into 3 categories, which were entertainment, help, I think, was one, and let's see if I can find the other one. Here we go. Yeah, help, training, and entertainment. And they're kind of hoping that by packing in game DVR with the console, and I'm sure Sony is hoping this too, they will eliminate the need for players to go through a third-party service like YouTube and just bring them in straight through the console. And then, well, the console was designed with advertising in mind, let's say that. So that's kind of exciting though, because they will lead into a focus on more social gaming. Everything about these new consoles is social, as long as you're connected to the internet, that is. Also saw a ton of Xbox One stuff later that day. Went eyes on with the next generation of Kinect. They showed off basically nothing that we don't already know, but they said that the thing should be functional from up to a meter away, and then farther out, and that the Kinect will actually assign an identity to you and your face and your body as opposed to older consoles, which assigned all of your information to the controller that you were holding. So if you passed the controller to somebody else, it would still be your gamer tag, whereas if somebody passed the controller to you now, all of your settings are automatically updated without having to pause or anything like that. Saw Dead Rising 3 again. Microsoft and Capcom showed off some screenshots of the game and showed off a new craftable weapon, which was the laser sword. It was in past games. And they also showed off a new costume, the knight costume, which kind of did a little bit to help reassure me that this won't be too self-serious of a game. I also saw the same preview that I saw at E3, which I thought was kind of neat, but had some issues this time around, both with lag and with kind of sticking the character into one animation. They actually had to restart the demo. And then after that I saw Forza 5, which has 3 pillars of gameplay. So they want great physics, great opponents, and what was the other one? Great graphics, I think. Yeah, great graphics, great physics, and great opponents were the 3. And, graphics is pretty self-explanatory. The game looks fairly nice. Physics, they went to a specialized agency in Buffalo, New York, who does a lot of physics work. It's called CalSpan, and they did tire research there, so they've completely overhauled the physics system, and that sounds really satisfying. They've also implemented this system where when you press down on the trigger, when you're going over kind of rough terrain, or if you're taking a turn and it's going a little rough, they'll actually give the feedback of ABS through rumble in the trigger, which they've said they've noticed people actually drive differently based on the feedback they're getting through the triggers, which sounds like it has a lot of potential. And then great opponents, they talked all about that Drivatar thing that they've got going on with the AI at E3. Basically more of the same at Comic-Con. The AI will kind of watch you, learn how you play, watch everybody else learn how they play, and your Drivatar should supposedly drive more or less like you do. So let's see. Next up, I saw Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag. There was a panel, and there was also a giant pirate ship. If you're interested in seeing the pirate ship, please check out our YouTube channel where we have a tour of the top and middle decks of the pirate ship. The bottom one was playing a demo, which is now up online, so we weren't allowed to film down there, but there wasn't really much of anything down there. So yeah, panel coverage. Todd McFarlane is bringing out a huge Edward Kenway statue. It hasn't been painted yet, but it should be out later this year. And there are also action figures coming for the game. Blackbeard, Connor from AC3, Edward, and a few other key characters. And what makes them unique this time around is that they will have DLC codes embedded in the bottom of the packages, so you can actually get unique skins or unique swords for buying these action figures in the game. And so by doing that, they're kind of trying to tie the whole ecosystem of game and figures and comics and all this other media together in kind of a bit of more of a cohesive way, and reward people who engage in all that media. Speaking of external media, there's a new Assassin's Creed comic coming out called Assassin's Creed Brahmin, and it takes players to India with a brand new assassin. So that was the panel. And the ship we've got a video of on the channel, so please check that out. Just a few more things. Microsoft announced right after Comic-Con that they were going to be allowing self-publishing for indie developers on the Xbox One, which again is a 180 from their old policies. They are now kind of adopting policies much more similar to Sony or Steam. You can actually turn your Xbox One into a dev kit by registering it with Microsoft, and they'll recognize if you're an official company or not and allow you to use the console as a dev kit right in your house. any console can be used this way. They aren't really talking if there's going to be fees for it or what's going to be going on. I would expect there would be a fee for it because a normal dev kit will run you like $1,500 to $2,500 in most cases. And then finally, I played Lost Planet 3 at Comic-Con, and I did not come away impressed. The game is coming out in just about exactly a month now. This is the 28th. It's coming out on the 27th of August. And yeah, I don't think it's going to be very good. The AI just kind of bugged out for this boss and walked off disinterested, allowing me to shoot it pretty much indiscriminately. I was getting stuck in the environment. I, didn't really know what to do because the game was not very good at providing instruction or visual cues or anything like that as to what exactly I was supposed to be doing. So I don't necessarily have super high hopes for that game, but on the other hand, I haven't played the final thing yet. That was only one mission. The game looks nice, has really nice graphics, and it certainly plays better as far as I can tell than any of Spark's other games, Turning Point, Fall of Liberty, and Legendary the Box, both of which were pretty awful. So, not saying it's going to be a bad game, but I was not impressed with that one specific level that they were showing off at Comic-Con. Or the one that I played. There were actually a couple of levels there, but I had to run. So that's pretty much all the Comic-Con stuff that happened. Like I said before, there's much more detailed coverage of all that stuff on the site, www.gameshampoo.com/magazine. So check that out if you want to stay in the loop, or if you want to catch up on anything you've missed from Comic-Con. We are going to be having coverage of all those games going into the future, especially the PS4 and the Xbox One, which are coming out this November. So stay tuned for videos of unboxings for the games, the consoles, how-tos for all that stuff, reviews for all that stuff. It's going to be really exciting. Thanks for watching, and like and subscribe for more videos.